Where does Cain get his wife? Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ask and Response with R.A. Sweeney, where I take your questions and try to give my best response to them. I don't promise a perfect answer, but I promise to share my understanding and my thoughts on different subjects. So I want to talk today about, it's a very, very common question that comes up, this idea of like, okay, if Adam and Eve are the only two humans and then they have two sons, where did Cain get his wife? And later on, when they have another son, Seth, where did he get his wife? Like those sorts of questions of that. And honestly, I feel like even to take it further, like Cain goes and builds a city. And it doesn't say that he populates the city, like he brings together a bunch of people to populate it, but like the word for city there is actually, it's a big city. It's like a walled city. It's not just like, I built myself a house with a wall around it. Like this is a community of a decent amount of people. So he's brought together people to build this city. And where did they come from? And so there's not a clear answer in the Bible. The Bible does not say like, okay, well, here's where it comes from and we all just missed it. Like that's not the case. And so there's a couple different ways that we can look at this. When we look at like genetics, I've heard geneticists, plural, who have like researched and done a lot of study of like, is it possible that that Adam and Eve could have contained enough genetic material to then like build out all of humanity like we currently have? And they all are in agreement that like, yeah, that seems very, very plausible that within these first humans, there was enough genetic diversity that they could have spread that out and it wouldn't have been problematic for their kids to marry and things like that. And so the idea being like they had other kids, these are just the ones that we focus on. And so Cain would have married his sister. For me, that's kind of gross. But just because something's gross doesn't mean it's not true. So scientists are saying like, yeah, it seems very, very plausible that this could have happened. And then we get to Noah and it's like, well, if everybody died in the flood, then same sort of deal. We've got a few more people there, so it's a little easier, but same sort of deal. Like we've got Noah and his wife and his three sons and their wives. Is that enough? And yes, it seems like we do have the possibility or the plausibility genetically to say like, hey, they could have just been this one family that kept, they intermarried for the next generation and then, just did their best to spread it out afterward. And so that could be. For Cain to have enough siblings and then children to populate a whole like walled city, it's not impossible, I suppose. And if his brothers and sisters are having kids, and so then we've got nieces and nephews coming there, like it seems plausible. We could even tie that to Nimrod a few chapters later, who builds the city of Babel. He brings all of humanity together for this project. And so we could see that's kind of what Cain's doing. He's bringing together the whole family, all the brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews. All of that is coming together, and we're going to build the city. And very possibly. The other way that this tends to get explained is that there's humans and there's humans. So that Adam and Eve weren't the first like humanoids, the human type creatures. They were just taken out of humanity and made something more than what everybody else was. And so this kind of follows a lot like what we see with sort of evolutionary teaching, that there was, genetic differences and, like this species and this species that are really, really close. They're basically the same. They were intermarrying and having kids and things like that. And so Adam and Eve were kind of taken out and they were made unique in a certain way. But there were other, maybe Neanderthals or whatever, something close to humans that were outside the Garden of Eden. And there's intermarrying with them. And, depending on how you want to play all that out, some of that I feel like makes a lot more sense than others. but that's plausible as well. And I think there's a lot of biblical ideas that could support that idea. There's science that supports the genetic diversity within the one family expanding. Then there's also just the idea of like, it never says that God didn't create more people. So God created Adam and Eve, and it even says like God made Adam and then he took him and planted him in the garden. So it doesn't say that he wasn't making other people. Maybe when he was making animals, those were like outside of Eden people as well. So there's a lot of different ways we can explain this. It becomes such a sticking point because if you assume that the Bible tells you everything that happened, then it's like, well, I don't understand how this came about. But if I'm assuming that there's other things happening that we're just not told about, which seems very, very plausible because it doesn't talk about a lot of things, then I don't know where Cain's wife came from or how he populated a whole city exactly, because it doesn't say exactly how it happened. But there's a lot of different ways I could come to, like, it doesn't seem unreasonable that he found another woman, whether it was a sister, whether it was outside of Eden type people, that God created a wife for him. Like, any of those things seem very, very plausible, and I don't think make these glaring contradictions in the Bible or anything like that. They all could fit, and it's just a matter of is it really worth arguing over? And if so, like, then do the research and figure out like which one you believe. Like, one of those, I very strongly buy into what I think was going on, and I don't think I need to get into which, because I don't think it's really that important as to which one's true. But if it's something that's that important to you, like, look into different ideas of it and see what other people are saying about it. There's a lot of talk out there, but my point is the Bible leaves a lot of room for how it could have happened. It doesn't specify, so I don't think it's that important. But, we could see, genetic diversity within the family was able to populate a whole earth. We could see that there were other human-like creatures, and Adam and Eve were taken out of that to be kind of like what Genesis 1 talks about. Like, you're going to be the rulers over creation. You're going to be something more than just that. It could be that God made afterward when he was, or made separately when he was making land animals, that some sort of human-like thing, but not quite what Adam and Eve were made in that. There's a lot of different ways this could go. So I just want to kind of let that sit there of like, there's options, there's variability. This isn't a sticking point, and there's a lot of good resources out there, depending on which way you want to explore. Lots of good resources. So I just encourage you to have an open mind, and if it bothers you or you're really interested, like, go check it out, go find the answers, because there's a lot of good information out there. So that's what I have about this question. That is by no means an answer, but it's that's my response to how I would answer somebody who is who's asking these sorts of questions. So hope that was a blessing. Hopefully that at least gave you some ideas, maybe some encouragement, either to do some more research or just to be okay with the Bible doesn't seem to think it's that important to explain the answer to that question. So hopefully that's helpful. We'll see you all next time. Thanks, everyone.